Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gaura Premanandi Hali Hali Ho Om Akyantamandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Stapadam Yena Bhuttale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swabadantikam Namam Vishnu Padakashabhasa Bhuttale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasadara Shatarine Vanchakaupa Tuvesha Kripa Sanubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasari Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you very much for coming to this morning's Bhagavatam class and for allowing me to say a few words and share a few realizations. So we are reading Canto 4, Chapter 16, verse 24, and also 25, and maybe even 26, because there's a little mix-up in the numbers of the verses. Actually, yesterday we did the second time the same verse, and things are a little out. But since I'm giving tomorrow class again, if we don't manage to do all 3 verses, we can do 2 verses tomorrow, and then we are back on track. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Isho Swamedan Satamajahara. Do we repeat, or how do you usually do it? Shall I just read it through once and we continue, or do you responsively, or huh? Okay. All right, so I'll just read it once through. Ishur Swamedan Satamajahara Sarasvati Padura Bhaviyatva Ashityasya Hayam Purandara Shata Kratusaramevatamane. Translation. At the source of the river Sarasvati, this king will perform 100 sacrifices known as Ashvamedha. In the course of the last sacrifice, the heavenly King Indra will steal the sacrificial horse. So yesterday in our discussion on envy, we used that very example to illustrate the difficulty amongst equals to associate with somebody who has similar influence, because that's what happened here, right? While King Indra did the 100 horse sacrifices, Prithu had 99, everything was fine because Indra felt established in a superiority. But then as soon as Prithu wanted to do the hundreds, then this agitated King Indra, so much so that he stole the horse because he wanted to be the supreme. So that's what we call envy. And then actually the stealing goes back and forwards. And there is one purport in this Leela where Prabhupada says both Prithu and King Indra got angry and envious of each other. And I was wondering, Prithu being a Shaktyavesha avatar, how is it that he got envious? And I asked a few Maharajas, but nobody could really say so much. But I figured out for myself, first of all, there's always this aspect there of the Leela, right? For the Leela to go on, sometimes even, Shaktyavesha avatars get, temporarily affected, covered by Yogamaya. But then the other point is also that, yes, we know King Indra has a problem with his envy and, false ego and Krishna lifting Govardhan hill and we know it all. So Indra has a bit of a problem. So in this shows also the infectious effect of envy. That even though we may actually be free from envy, but if we associate with somebody who is envious, we can temporarily be affected by this. Yes, it ignites our, false ego and envy there. Yes, so that is another aspect of the Leela. And then, as we know, who was it? I think Lord Brahma appeared on the scene then to settle the matter. So, and as soon as he said to Prithu, you don't need this 100 horse sacrifice. You're already a perfect devotee. No need for you. That re-established Prithu immediately in his non-envious position. He immediately let go of it. And externally it looks like Prithu was the loser. But no, humility is always glorious. So actually Prithu was the winner, even though he didn't do that sacrifice, And later on Indra also acknowledges that and realizes, and he felt actually ashamed, and he went to Prithu and apologized, So that connects very nicely with our discussion in the evening yesterday. So let me move on and read the next verse, since there is no purport. Isha swasatmo pavane sametya Sanat Kumaram Bhagavatamekam Aradhya Bhaktya Labhata Malam Taj Jnanam Yatubam Param Vidanti. Do you do the word for word also? Esha, this king, Svasatma, of his palace, Upavane, in the garden, Sametya, meeting, Sanat Kumara, Bhagavatam, the worshipable, Ekam, alone, Aradhya, worshipping, Bhaktya, with devotion, Alabhata, he will achieve, Amalam, without contamination, Tat, that, Jnanam, transcendental knowledge, Yatta, by which, Brahma, spirit, Param, supreme, transcendental, Vidanti, they enjoy, they know. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. This King Prithu will meet Sanat Kumara, one of the 4 Kumaras, in the garden of his palace compound. The king will worship him with devotion and will be fortunate to receive instructions by which one can enjoy transcendental bliss. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Vedanti refers to one who knows something or enjoys something. That's already interesting, that it's the same word, to know and to enjoy. When a person is properly instructed by a spiritual master and understands transcendental bliss, he enjoys life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 1854, Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma Nasuchati Nakangshati. When one attains to the Brahman platform, he neither hankers nor laments. He actually partakes of transcendental blissful enjoyment. Although King Prithu was an incarnation of Vishnu, he nonetheless taught the people in his kingdom to take instructions from a spiritual master who represents the disciplic succession. Thus, one can become fortunate and enjoy a blissful life, even within this material world. In this verse, the verb Vedanti is sometimes taken to mean understanding. Thus, when a person understands Brahman, or the supreme source of everything, he enjoys a blissful life. We were even touching upon that yesterday too, in our discussion. There was also the statement from Prabhupada saying that if we just learn to act non-enviously, we can be happy in this material world. So here we find the same theme again. So I dare say, even if we don't know Brahman, still we all have that experience, how our life transformed to the better after accepting Krishna consciousness, right? After accepting Guru, after receiving instructions and applying them in our life. Our life has changed to the better, Otherwise we probably wouldn't be here still. And We may have also heard the statement of Prabhupada saying, yes, Krishna consciousness transforms the hippies into happies. Right? And when I read this purport, this nice statement came to my mind. This is from 10th Canto, where Prabhupada says, we have practical experience of this with our students in the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Before becoming students, they were dirty looking, although they had naturally beautiful personal features. But due to having no information about Krishna consciousness, they appeared very dirty and wretched. Since they have taken to Krishna consciousness, their health has improved, and by following the rules and regulations, they have increased their bodily luster. Very nice. When they are dressed with saffron-colored cloth, or with nice saris, I'm adding here, with tilak on their foreheads and beads in their hands and on their necks, they look exactly as if they have come directly from Vaikuntha. Right? So that popped into my mind when I read this purport of becoming blissful and enjoying life by accepting Krishna consciousness. So nice example. And I mean, one point is also about devotional life, that the process and the goal are the same. This is quite a unique feature of bhakti. You know, in many other processes for elevating our consciousness, we perform one kind of tapasya, if you like, to achieve something else. But the amazing thing in bhakti is that the process and the goal are the same. So that means exactly what is described in the purport, that already now, here in Durban, in South Africa, or wherever we may be in the material world, we can actually get some glimpse of that happiness, that bliss, which will await us in the spiritual world. This is a very unique thing, because the same activities we do here, like in regards to deity worship, you know, we are bathing the Lord, dressing the Lord, feeding the Lord, making so many amazing flower arrangements for the Lord's pleasure. We chant His glories, we hear about His pastimes. All these activities exactly take place in the spiritual world. Actually, there is no difference. So according to how much we can absorb ourselves in that process here, we experience that bliss. At least a little drop. We get some understanding what unlimited realm of joy and bliss is awaiting us in the spiritual world. And that gives so much faith, so much encouragement, because already now we can taste something, even if we are not on the Brahma Buddha platform yet, you know, but still something we can taste. Yes, and I'm sure we all have experience of this, you know, when festivals are coming, or in the Prabhupada Marathon, when we get really absorbed and you know, the absorption is what gives us some little taste, you know, because also it is Krishna's way, how He reciprocates with a serious devotee, you know, and how we really apply ourselves. Sadhadam Kirtayantu Mami Yatanta Sadritavrata, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination. So that really describes the mood of service we have to cultivate, no matter what we do, endeavoring with great determination. That's what attracts Krishna's attention, Krishna's merciful glance. And how does He reciprocate? By giving some satisfaction, some deeper satisfaction in the heart. That's the way how Krishna reciprocates. So, and that increases our faith to even dive more into serving, into sacrificing ourselves. So like that. It's such a wonderful process, where we can immediately feel some change of our life, yes. So, yes, and yesterday I was also mentioning, there's this one purport where Prabhupada says, actually in one sense there is no material world. There is only forgetfulness of Krishna. And those who are in forgetfulness of Krishna, from them it is to be said that they live in the material world. Prabhupada puts it very nicely. That's how he formulates it. So of those who are in forgetfulness of Krishna, from them it is to be said. Jai Shri Shri Radha Raman. Ki Jai. Yes, so from them it is to be said that they live in the material world. But those who are not in forgetfulness of Krishna, who are deeply absorbed, they are not even part in one sense of this material world. They already have Vaikuntha consciousness, Goloka Bandham consciousness. They're already somewhere else. And for them, they see Krishna everywhere, or their thoughts are fully dedicated to the Lord, their service and or their activities, So yes. But since this purport is emphasizing the importance of accepting Guru, and how even Pritumaj, who is a Shaktavesha avatar, sets this example by accepting instruction from one of the Kumars. So I do want to use this opportunity to elaborate a little bit on the importance of Guru and what it means to become a true disciple. We are often so concerned, or who is true Guru? Is Guru qualified? Is he really true Guru? Is he a pure devotee? But little are we concerned with the point, what does it take to become a true disciple? Gaur Govinda Maharaj writes a lot about this. You may have read some of his books. I had the great fortune to personally meet him when he came into Australia in the 80s, But I was a very young devotee at that time, and I could not really fully comprehend his exalted position, but I do have some strong impressions of his appearance and preaching and so on. So he writes a lot about this topic of being a true disciple. And I remember speaking once to one initiating guru, I won't mention his name, and he was sharing in privacy with me what he thinks is the biggest challenge of being a Diksha Guru. He said the biggest challenge is that you can exactly see what instruction you should be giving to your disciple, but because he is not ready to accept it, you can't give it. Wow. That just shows how very often our acceptance of Guru is in name only. It's external. It's maybe even a kind of formality. Everybody has Guru, okay, let me also have Guru. But deep in the heart, we are not taking shelter. Because one aspect of taking shelter means we want to be instructed and corrected by this person. So I discuss these details all in connection with mentorship. But what to speak of Guru? If we are not ready to accept the instruction Guru wants to give us, this is very sad. Very sad, very unfortunate because he actually cannot give us what we really need, you know. I actually, in this regard, I witnessed once a situation like this. I was present at a personal darshan of a young girl with her guru, and I was simply the person for the Vaishnava etiquette, so they don't talk alone, so I was the third person there. And this young girl, she had made up her mind to live in Vrindavan. Young devotee, not married, living in Vrindavan. So, and she proposed this to her guru. And I could, of course, immediately sense that he was not so happy about the idea. And he was trying from this angle, that angle, carefully make us understand that Vrindavan is not the best place for young devotees and girls, you know. So, but she could not hear. You know, she didn't accept. It was very obvious. She had made her mind up. She had made up her mind, and she simply came to get the blessings of her guru, you know. So no matter how much guru tried, she was not willing to hear. So what could he do? He said, okay, just go and live in Vrindavan. You know, he had no other choice. And then, believe it or not, she walked out happy. Wow, I've got the blessings of my guru to live in Vrindavan. He wants me to live in Vrindavan. With that conclusion, she walked out. And I was speechless, you know. I didn't say anything. I didn't get involved. I just witnessed the whole thing, you know. And she was telling everybody, oh, my guru gave me the instruction I should go and live in Vrindavan. You know. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj makes this point. He says, Guru or Sadhu has two aspects. The creeper aspect and the vanchana aspect, the cheating aspect. So of course, it's not that Guru or Sadhu are cheating. No, we want to be cheated because we are not ready to accept, you know. So that's why Sadhu Guru have the creeper side when we are actually ready to accept, you know. That is the true blessings and mercy, you know. Yes. But then there's the vanchana side. When we are not ready, you know, then he gives us what we want to hear. And we are actually cheating ourselves, because actually Guru may want to give us something else, but he sees he can't. So what choice does he have? He cannot put a disciple into the situation where he disobeys the order of Guru, you know. That's a big offense that can break the relationship. So that's why Guru just simply has to go along with it, just to maintain the relationship, you know. Yes. Yeah, so that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, you know. But yeah, I want to touch upon three aspects very briefly. I mean, I have a whole seminar on this for over a few hours, but so I'm just getting a few little points from this, you know, because I find it a very important topic, you know. What does it mean to actually become a true disciple? I mean, we should be concerned about this. We should be eager to understand this and actually try and become a true disciple, you know, and not just cruise along and, yeah, accepting Guru in name only as formality. This will not get us anywhere. This will not lead us to cultivation of bhakti. Very clear, you know. So the first really important aspect is that we are inquisitive. Yes, we touched upon that yesterday evening also, the importance of being inquisitive. This is how we associate with any person who is more experienced than us. To be inquisitive, to be eager to hear and inquire. And inquisitive does not necessarily mean, oh, I've got a question. It is actually a state of heart, that there is this intense greed to hear, to find out, to capture something here which will be useful for our onward journey, right? That is inquisitiveness, that we hear without indifference. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives this 3 levels of being attentive in regards to chanting. That at the level of the body is overcoming laziness and sleep. I can see some personalities are struggling here with sleeping, so this kind of hearing will not do much, So, and then the next level is attentiveness on the level of the mind. What was that? Or not being distracted, right? And the attentiveness on the level of the heart is no indifference. So this indifference in the heart, this, oh, well, I can take it or leave it, okay, I will just sit off my time here and hope this finishes soon. When we hear in that mood, the words will go in one ear out the other, will bypass the heart, will not transform the heart. But bhakti is all about the process of transforming the heart. So in any of our services, the heart has to be involved. And in hearing, it means we hear with inquisitiveness, with greed, like a dry sponge, sucking up every drop. Right? So that inquisitiveness has to be there. And I do want to read you one statement from Prabhupada in this regard, which I have collected here in my nice little verse book. So this is 2.8.24. Prabhupada says, the spiritual master is always prepared to impart knowledge to the disciple, and specifically when the disciple is very inquisitive. Inquisitiveness on the part of a disciple is greatly necessary for the progressive disciple. Maharaj Pariksit is a typical disciple because he is perfectly inquisitive. And now Prabhupada says, if one is not very inquisitive about self-realization, one need not approach a spiritual master simply to make a show of discipleship. Whew, heavy, Yeah, Prabhupada gives it straight, that unless we are actually inquisitive, no need to accept Guru just to make a show of being a disciple. No need. Yes, so very important to understand this inquisitiveness, Yes. And we should use the opportunity to inquire from our Guru, because we don't know how much longer he will be around, if he is still around. Some of you have lost already the physical presence of your Guru. So that's the thing. Once Guru is gone, there may be some lamentation. Oh, I never even asked him about this. I did not take the opportunity to hear enough from him and to inquire and to get that personal guidance which stays with me for the rest of my life. We are not advanced enough that we can immediately connect on the level of Vani, just remembering his instructions, reading his books or something. But no, we need a little bit of Vapu to strengthen that Vani. So, and even even when other devotees leave this world, sometimes we have some little regret. Oh, I didn't take that association. I took that person for granted. I didn't appreciate, that I could have spent more time with that person or reached out to that person or something, So, and what to speak of Guru, there may be some regret also that we have not fully taken advantage of his presence in this world. It's a rare thing to associate with Guru. So inquisitiveness, we actually, for many years, I used to make lists of questions. I used to collect questions, and then throughout the year, and then when I had the opportunity to meet my Guru, I was making a point to go and ask him, make an appointment, So we have to have some relevant questions, yes. Especially if nobody else can give us a satisfying answer. But even if we can find an answer from other sides, sometimes, there is a special potency if Guru gives us that same instruction, then it hits the heart more, and we can capture it and preserve it in our heart and really apply it, So inquisitiveness is the first one. Then the second one is accepting discipline. Yes. Disciple comes from discipline, right? So a disciple is he or she who accepts discipline. Yes. Meaning, there's a few nice statements too about this point, that a disciple should be willing to lay down his very life for the pleasure of Guru. Prabhupada says this in 4th Canto, 28th chapter, verse 50. So after a few chapters you will get there. It says there, Prabhupada says, in other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. Ooh, yes. That is the mood, actually, There's another purport where Prabhupada says, an easygoing life and advancement in Krishna consciousness do not go well together. No easygoing life, no room for easygoing life if we want to cultivate bhakti. No room. Yes. And then Prabhupada continues, Krishna is more clever than any other living entity. He wants to see how painstaking we are in accepting Guru's order. Whether we are really willing to sacrifice ourselves, to serve with heart and soul, to give our very everything. That is the service mood which conquers Krishna's heart. That's why a pure devotee controls Krishna, because he is so conquered, so obliged, when a person actually sacrifices themselves in pleasing him and the devotees. As we know Krishna says, not he is my devotee who claims to be my devotee, but he who is the devotee of my devotee, he is my true devotee. So sacrificing ourselves in pleasing the devotees, this is the secret of success. Yes. The longer I am in Krishna consciousness, the more I realize this. Serving, pleasing the devotees, sacrificing yourself for their benefit. That attracts Krishna's mercy, Yes. Yes, and actually this was also one of Prabhupada's secrets of success. Yes. In one lecture, was it appearance or disappearance of Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada makes this point, that he says, when I left India to fulfill this impossible mission of my Gurudev, I had no clue, no plan how I would achieve this, But there were two things that Prabhupada felt helplessly dependent on the mercy on the guidance, on the blessings of his guru and the previous acharyas. This internal helpless dependence that we feel, without their blessings, without their mercy, I can't achieve anything. Prabhupada had that. And this very point that he read, I think a commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he says this in one commentary to one verse in the Bhagavad Gita, that one has to be willing to lay down his very life to please Guru. These were Prabhupada's two secrets of success, So, and this is what it means to become a true disciple, to feel helplessly dependent on Guru's and Prabhupada's mercy, guidance, blessings, that we feel. Without their blessings, I cannot do anything. Without their advice, I don't want to make any serious decision. That we feel this helpless internal dependence, and that we are willing to really sacrifice ourselves, go our limits, to our limits. And very natural, this is a sign of bhakti, If we are willing to give up our personal comforts, personal considerations, personal interests, what we like, and if we simply sacrifice ourselves like that, that's the beginning of love, of bhakti. And we do have this nice pastime in this regard. In Krishna book, when Krishna, Balaram and Sudama were in Sandipani Muni's Gurukul in Ujjain. Anybody who's been to Ujjain, I've visited that ashram there, where Krishna and Balaram were in Sandipani Muni's Gurukul. There's a little temple there, at that very place. So, and as we probably all remember, there was this nice pastime when Sandipani Muni was sending them out in the forest to collect firewood. And then the storm came, and they could not find their way back. And these boys stayed out in the freezing cold, were drenched in rain, and it was stormy, and Sandipani Muni the next morning goes and looks for them. And then he finds them in the forest, and he is so pleased. And he's giving this very nice little speech, which I copied in my verse book because I like it so much and I want to read this to you. He says, "My dear boys, it is very wonderful that you have suffered so much trouble for me. Everyone likes to take care of his body as the first consideration. Don't we all like to take care of our bodily things, But you are so good and faithful to your Guru that without caring for bodily comforts, you have taken so much trouble for me. I'm also glad to see that bona fide students, here we have it, true disciples, bona fide students like you, will undergo any kind of trouble for the satisfaction of the spiritual master. Here we have it. That is the way for a bona fide disciple to become free from his debt to the spiritual master. It is the duty of the disciple to dedicate his life to the service of the spiritual master. My dear best of the thrice-born, I am greatly pleased by your action, and I bless you. May all your desires and ambitions be fulfilled. May the understanding of the Vedas, which you have learned from me, always continue to remain within your memory, so that at every moment you can remember the teachings of the Vedas and quote the instructions without difficulty. Thus you will never be disappointed in this life or in the next. So nice, you know. And this is indeed how it works, you know. Realizations do not come just by studying and becoming learned. But no, when we serve, sacrificing ourselves, giving up our personal considerations and comfort and convenience and that attracts Krishna's merciful glance. That gives us realization, as Sandipani Muni describes. That's how we get the blessings, to remember and understand the essence of spiritual knowledge, you know? Yes. And I mean, we can see this very nicely in our first generation of Prabhupada disciples, you know, that they had this mood of really sacrificing themselves for Prabhupada. You know, of course, Prabhupada's presence also, you know, inspired that mood of sacrifice, you know. And that's what empowered them, you know, that's what empowered them, or at least some of them who had that spirit, to actually do something for Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. So if we want to make some little contribution, we need that empowerment. And how do we get that? By performing tapasya, by being willing to sacrifice ourselves. Yes, definitely. I mean, yeah, at this point, I have to share, you know, when I joined in the mid-80s, the spirit was different than today. Oh yes, we really were diving into things, you know, doing all kinds of almost a little crazy things just to please Guru and Krishna, you know. We were going for it, you know. There was not this mood of independence and, oh, I want to be 6 months in India now. And we never even would come up with such an idea, you know. No, we were sacrificing ourselves in service, you know, and that gave so much taste and also gives realizations and some little empowerment there, you know. Yes, and that spirit, unfortunately, is in most parts of the world, it is kind of faded away a little bit, you know, unfortunately. Yes, so anyway, and then the third point, which is very important, oh, we've got 3 minutes. The third point, which is important to become a true disciple, is to be free from duplicity. Yes, free from pretending, you know. Yes. Oh, there's a few heavy statements there. Let me quickly share them just to conclude this topic under D for duplicity. Yes, here 4:21:33, so it's also coming in fourth canto, you know, after some time. There Prabhupada says, anyone can become successful in devotional service provided he displays no duplicity. It is explained here that one must be very frank and open-minded. To be situated in a lower status of life is not a disqualification for success in devotional service. The only qualification is that whether one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Sudra, he must be open, frank and free from reservations. Then, by performing his particular occupational duty under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, he can achieve the highest success in life. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Bhaktyaloka, he makes also a strong statement. One should give up the association of Dharmadvajis, the hypocritically devout with great special care. So in other words, those who pretend that they want to, become Vaishnavas, but actually in their heart they don't actually have any serious desire to do so. They just externally pretend. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes this point that those who pretend, this is a more contaminating association than just associating with a materialist. At least the materialist is open. So, I want to enjoy life. That's where I'm at, So he is open. But somebody who pretends and has some other ulterior motives, this is the worst association. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, Those who accept the external signs of Dharma but do not actually follow Dharma are called Dharmadvajis. In the devotional service, this hypocrisy ruins everything. Better to associate with sense enjoyers, for in this whole world there is no worse association than the Dharmadvajis. The deceitful Dharmadvajis accept the signs of Dharma with a desire to cheat the world, and to fulfill their crooked desires, they cheat the fool. And to fulfill their crooked desires, they cheat the foolish. So these are pretty heavy and strong words. And of course we may say, well, so strong, but yes, if we are introspective and honest, we may discover that there's also some little hypocrisy living in our hearts, that we try and give this picture that how devoted we are or something, but maybe in the heart we are not even that serious or something, they're all the most subtle forms of this, And there's another similar statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 220, where Prabhupada says, unfortunately, in this age of Kali, there are many mundane persons in the dress of Vaishnavas, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has described them as disciples of Kali. He says, Kali Chela. Heavy. He indicates that there is another Vaishnava, a pseudo-Vaishnava, with tilak on his nose and kanti beads around his neck. Such a pseudo-Vaishnava associates with money and women and is jealous of successful Vaishnavas. Although passing for a Vaishnava, his only business is earning money in the dress of a Vaishnava. Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore says that such a pseudo-Vaishnava is not a Vaishnava at all, but a disciple of Kali Yuga. So of course, let's not fall into this trap of using these statements now to pass judgments, or let's have a look, do we have any Kali Chelas in our society here? No, if we go that way, guaranteed we will commit Vaishnava aparad. It's not our business. But no, let us use these statements to look in our hearts. How much of a Kali Chela are we? Are we just here pretending that we are so devoted, but deep in our heart we actually only want to increase our name and fame and so yes. And to finish off the whole topic, let me read one more powerful statement that Prabhupada made in regards to personal ambition. Yes, this is also something which is a serious topic, which of course we can spend much longer elaborating on. This is in Nectar of Devotion, chapter 3. Prabhupada makes this statement: anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense. Even in the spiritual sense too, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. Whew, when I read this the first time, it hit me. And I thought to myself, wow, I want to taste the real thing. I better give up this desire to become a more and more important person. Otherwise, what do we taste? False ego gratification, not the really sweet taste of devotional service. And I think if we look in our hearts, we all, have this desire of becoming an important person, isn't it? In our little ways, whatever way it may be, we want to become an important person. So let's be clear, this is, not the path to taste pure bhakti. Then we may even fall in a subtle way into this Kali Chela category, that we are trying to pose as a devotee, but actually all we want to do is become a more and more important person in this world. We want to use the whole process of Krishna consciousness to become an important person. That's hypocrisy, actually. Yes. I mean, Gaur Govinda Maharaj speaks also heavy in his books about this tendency for hypocrisy. And as we know, Kali Yuga is the age of hypocrisy and cheating and quarreling. So we all have a little bit of that also in our hearts, Okay, sorry to go 5 minutes over time. Do we have, and we didn't manage to touch upon the next verse, but no problem. I will do 2 verses tomorrow, and then we are back in line because you're doing the schedule. So I will do the 2 verses tomorrow, and then we finish that chapter. Do we have time for just one quick question or comment or something? Is there anything which somebody wants to ask or say? Yes, Prabhu. Come a little closer so I see your smiling face.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I was happy to hear you speak at Ratha Yatra, although it wasn't all the time, and came in a little late, so I caught the last part of the class. But whatever you said was so incisive about name and fame and prestige in Krishna consciousness. So how do we differentiate between the Sudha Bhakta and the Pseudo Bhakta?
Sudha Bhakta and Pseudo Bhakta. Well, it's all very subtle, As Rupa Goswami says, devotee has to become an expert gardener, And he says the weeds and the bhakti ladder look exactly the same, but they're not, Yes. So it requires introspection and honesty and having a mentor. Without mentorship, that we have this more experienced senior friend in our life who is our dear most well-wishing friend who has no other interest except my spiritual journey and development, from whom I want to be corrected. Sometimes we become so advanced that there's nobody who can tell us anything, and that's the most dangerous position to be in. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, we live to be corrected. So, see, when I was in the devotee care committee and the GBC strategic planning, it's not much there's not much happening there now anymore, but for some time we were pretty active there. And I was in charge of developing a manual for leaders, care for leaders. And I was really making this point, no matter what position we are in, topmost position, whatever it may be, we have to have a mentor. We have to have this trusting, well-wishing person in our life, where we can open our heart, where we can share our innermost struggles and fears, and we know this person will keep it confidential. This person will not blabber it around in the whole community, and this person can give me some good advice, Yes. If we don't have that, we lead a risky life. Bharat Maharaj is always my example. He was on the level of Baba, and his problem was he didn't have a mentor, right? He was there alone in the forest, and even on that level where you have transcendental emotions, they can turn back into material attachment to a deer if we are not careful. So he didn't have anybody to tap him on the shoulder. Hey, it's enough now with the deer. Let the deer be deer and go back to your sadhana. Yes. So this should be a warning to us. And these things are so subtle. I discuss this in all details in the False Ego book, and also in the Sheltering Relationships book, that false ego is so subtle. It uses the mind and intelligence as tools to get the gratification the false ego is hankering for. And the contaminated intelligence finds every justification for anything. That's what goes on, that we find excuses, we blame this person, this situation, that thing. That's the defense mechanisms we are trapped in to defend our false ego, that we are right and everybody else is wrong. Without a mentor, very difficult to get out of this. To realize how we are trapped in these false ego patterns of behaviors. And then, whatever little traces of hypocrisy and pretending or is in there in the heart, very difficult to uproot and kick out, because we always justify it and protect it. Yes. Yeah, so big topics, But in essence, it is, we have to become an expert gardener, distinguishing the weeds from the bhakti ladder. And as we water the bhakti ladder, the weeds grow along, the name, fame, adoration, and enjoying all the facilities we may be getting as we become a little purified, and if we are not careful, that finishes off our spiritual life, Yes, so we need help with it. Okay, just in case there's somebody who still doesn't know that I do have published 5 books, I do have them with me. I don't have many left, so if anybody wants to get some books, you better get your copies, otherwise they're gone, don't leave it to the last minute. Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hare 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 Krishna.